Hey guys, my name is Will Cecil, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use Hacksaw to create randomly generated displacement patterns. And I know that may sound scary or a little ridiculous, but what it really means is you can use Hacksaw to create that classic glitchy displacement effect in seconds. It's incredibly fast, it's incredibly versatile. I'm really excited to show these to you guys. I think this is a really awesome plugin. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. I am going to be doing this tutorial in After Effects. Everything I show you can also be done in Premiere Pro. The only difference is the UI looks a little different, but all the fundamentals are the same. All of the functionality is the same. It'll just look a little different. Okay, so to get started, we are going to apply Hacksaw. I'm going to click on my test footage down here, and I'm going to go up to Effect, Will Cecil, Hacksaw. It'll take a minute, and there it is. And as you can see, it's already doing some interesting stuff to our footage. To start out with, we're going to go through each parameter one by one, and I'm going to give you a quick explanation of what it does, how it works, just so that you can better understand how to control Hacksaw. Okay, so to start with, horizontal and vertical intensity. Now these numbers control how much the image can be pushed over left or right on any given row. So let me explain a little bit about what that means. As you can see, I'm going to zoom in here. As you can see, how Hacksaw works is it takes the image and it basically divides it into rows and columns depending on if you use horizontal or vertical intensity. Each of those rows, the random number generator within Hacksaw generates a number that tells Hacksaw whether to push the image left, right, or not at all. And the vertical and horizontal intensity is how much to push the image left or right. So if you have it at 15, you can see that from there is 15 pixels over, and there from there, that's another 15 pixels over, and then it goes down all the way to here, and then it pushes it back over 15, back over 15 here. So if you wanted the same effect, but you wanted it to just be a little bit more dramatic, you could take this up to like 30. And you see the rows are all the same, but it pushes the image over a little bit farther on each cut. So that's what the intensity does. It doesn't limit how much the image can be pushed over. As you can see, this is pushed over more than 30 pixels from here. That's more than 30 pixels over. But each individual row is just 30 pixels. So that's how that works. It's a little confusing at first, and honestly, most of the time you probably don't even need to consider how it works. You just slide it until it looks and feels right to you. But again, I want to give you guys as much information so that you can control it as deeply as you choose to do so. So again, vertical intensity, it's the exact same thing, but it's going up and down. I'll just switch that over to show you. So that's what the same image would look like with a 30 of vertical intensity. And then moving right along, we're going to go down to chaos. The chaos slider is crazy. It's a little hard to describe how it works. It's a little technical. I don't want to get too in the weeds on you guys. But the gist is the higher the chaos, the thinner these blocks are going to be. And again, when you're working with a random number generator, it's not always consistent. As you can see, we do have some thin pinstripes of displacement here. That's going to happen. That's why we have the seed value, which I'll go over later. But the seed value gives you a little bit more control so that you can kind of get it to be exactly how you like. But the chaos, I'll slide it up for you guys just so you can see. The higher it goes, you'll start to see these chunks divide into smaller and smaller bits. So let's go. Okay, we'll just take that about halfway there, and you can see, so we're getting more of those pinstripe type things. The bigger chunks, there are some big ones still, but there are a lot more smaller slivers. And if I push that all the way, you'll see very quickly that the image just starts to get crazy. Until when you take it to 100, it's almost incomprehensible. So there. So you'll see you can do some crazy stuff with the chaos slider. I personally prefer to keep it between maybe 5 and 20, but I like a more subtle look in my image. If you're going for something more aggressive, it might make sense to turn it up. If you want to use it for a transition, you could turn it up and keyframe it down. There's a lot of things you can do with it, and that's why I chose to leave it in. But I do recognize that it is wild. It can be hard to control, so I encourage you to use it at your own discretion, but that's what the chaos slider does. Next is edge behavior. Those of you who are familiar with displacement will probably know what this is already, so feel free to skip over this part. But for everyone else, when you displace an image, if you push an image off the canvas, what happens is you have to deal with the pixels, or the dead space rather, on the opposite side of the image. So there isn't any information over here for the image to work with, and so we have to handle that somehow. And Hacksaw gives you 4 different ways to do that. Right now we have stretch, which just takes the pixel at the edge of the displacement and it stretches it down. It's a good way to get kind of a subtle, fairly seamless look. You don't notice it all that much, especially if you're moving quickly. So it's just a nice, clean way to put it together. The next one would be wrap, which is where when it pushes the image this way, the pixels that are caught up here, that get cut off the canvas, they actually wrap around and push up here. That can work really well too. It's great if you have like a solid color background. Stretch or wrap can both do really good work with that. It's pretty seamless. For something like this, it's an interesting stylistic choice. You know, there's a lot of reasons that you could do it. I think if you look at the promo trailer, I believe there are a few shots that I actually went with wrap instead of stretch, just because I thought it looked better for those shots. It's really kind of it depends on your footage. So play around with it, use whatever you like the most, whatever works best with your footage. It's not always going to be the stretch, but that is the default because it usually, in my opinion, looks the best. The next 2 are black and white. These are pretty simple. It just turns the dead space black, or it turns the dead space white. This is great if you're trying to key that section out and maybe have a transition underneath it, or if you're trying to layer stuff on top of each other or recolor it or anything like that. It's great to just have a matte effect in case you need it. We're going to take that back to stretch. And next we're going to move on to animation. So this is the built-in animation engine. It's a really cool, really fast way to just add a little bit more dynamics and motion to your displacement. How it works is it's basically a scanning animation. It'll take the displacement and just slide it over. So I'll just show you real quickly. I'll take the vertical animation speed and I'll set it to about 34. That works. And I'll play it real quick. The displacement is just slowly sliding to the left as it plays. And it's interesting. It's subtle, but when you use it with a shot that has the correct motion, it really does add a lot to it. You will see that in a handful of shots in the promo trailer if you want to go back and take a look at that. It's just a nice way if you're like, oh, it's interesting, I just need a little bit more, and I don't want to go crazy. I don't want it to be so incomprehensible that I can't see the underlying image, but I still want a little bit of motion. This is a great way to do that. So I'll play it again for you just so you can see it. And then if we crank it up too, you can get it to go pretty crazy. So it's moving faster, and when you put it all the way to 100, you'll see it gets insane. And that to me is the real beauty of Hacksaw. You can slap it on your footage, crank the horizontal or vertical speed up to 100, and you've immediately got a really classic, really nice glitch displacement effect with incredibly low effort and incredibly fast. You don't have to manually keyframe it. You just slap it on and go. Next, we're going to set that back down. Next, we're going to go to the seed values. The seed values are, in my opinion, a really important part of Hacksaw. This is where you're going to dial in your image to be exactly how you want. So right now, we're looking at this frame, and we've got a few pinstripes right here in the middle of the car. Say this was for a car ad, and I'm like, oh, I want the displacement around the car. I don't want it to affect the car too much. What you can do is you can come in and adjust the vertical seed until you find a displacement pattern that you like. What this basically does is every time you adjust the seed value, it will create it'll generate a new displacement pattern. So if we slide it up, you can see we're just flicking through different displacement patterns to see one that catches our eye. Let's see if we can find one that looks good with the car. Okay, there. That works. For all intents and purposes, let's just say this is the one that you really liked. You know, okay, 1462, that's my vertical seed value that I think makes the car look the best. You can leave it there. You can still use the horizontal and vertical animation engine. You can still adjust all the parameters. You just know that 1462 is your baseline frame that you really like. And that is a quick overview of Hacksaw. Within these parameters, you can do a lot of interesting things. You can combine them in ways that you might not realize. And I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with and how you incorporate Hacksaw into your projects. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at contact@willcecil.net, or you can also fill out a contact form on my website, willcecil.net. I love hearing from you guys, and I'm always happy to help and answer questions if I can. If there are any other tutorials that you guys want to see, please leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for updates on future product releases as well as future tutorials. And I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you next time.